Public Wi-Fi is everywhere today these
Mm-hmm,
days.
mm-hmm.
Like wherever you go, you can get public Wi-Fi. Public Wi-Fi is one of the core components of building this infrastructure. Public Wi-Fi is everywhere. Everybody rely on it in a daily basis. The most important question that we need to ask, is it secure? That is the most important question.
Welcome to another episode of the CyberSec Migrant Podcast. And today it's going to be, again, you know how we do it. It's going to be something very fun, something very interesting, something you can relate to, and something that you're also going to be able to take something away from today. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Femi, and on this podcast, we talk about the stories of immigrants who have successfully immigrated to a different country, usually the West, so North America, the United States, Canada, and have successfully built a career. And at this point, they're thriving and giving back to the community. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back. If you're a new subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel as well, or following us on your favorite podcast platform. We're available on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, iHeartRadio. Anyway, just search the CyberSec Migrant and you will find us. You can also feel free to follow our new sister podcast called the CSM Lounge, where we discuss things that are general IT tech, things like AI trends. You can find a lot of that. I'm going to put a card to that right up here. And once again, thank you for watching another one of my videos. My guest today is somebody who is just like myself. He's also an immigrant to Canada, from the beautiful country of, I'm going to let him say, but I'm going to give you a clue before we start. It's the only African country that never got colonized. Fasil, welcome to the SafePublicWi-Fi Migrant Podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your kind word. Yeah, that's exactly true. I am from Ethiopia. It's Black History Month, right? February.
Exactly, right?
My name is Fasil. I am a CEO and founder of QState Cybersecurity. Basically, we are a penetration testing company. We help organizations to identify their security weaknesses and providing their, fixes. And then we provide, after fixing their security weaknesses, and then we provide remediation at the end before attackers can exploit them. My background, as I said before, I came from Ethiopia. Like before I moved here, I used to work as a university professor. After I moved here, I started my career as a software developer. I worked in that space for several years. And, I have been passionate about cybersecurity ever since, my early university times. Few years back, I decided to transition to cybersecurity, and I earned my OSCP certification. And after that, I started my company. Currently, now I am focusing on, fixing one of the big security issue, one of our, vast digital infrastructure, public Wi-Fi. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, thank you, Fasil. I've always found it interesting when I have this conversation that, before we get into the cybersecurity stuff, Ethiopia was the one African country that never got colonized. It's still
Never.
fantastic. How that happened,
Never.
I don't know, but again,
Yeah,
and I
never
think,
been colonized. Yeah.
and I'm a huge lover of reggae music, so Peter Tosh, Bob Marley,
Yeah.
and the whole Rastafari movement. They've got
Exactly.
a lot going with Haile Selassie and the Emperor, all of that. So I think it's great. We'll have that conversation sometime later. Definitely we'll come back to that
Yes.
conversation. But talking
Yeah.
about today, you mentioned something about public Wi-Fi, and
Yeah.
this is something that a lot of people don't know. But tell me, why do you think we should consider public Wi-Fi as critical infrastructure? It's not water supply, it's not power grid. So why is it critical infrastructure?
That is a fantastic question, Femi. It's so public Wi-Fi is everywhere today these days. Like wherever you go, you can get public Wi-Fi. Even like municipalities these days, as a core part of their smart city, public Wi-Fi is one of the core components of building this infrastructure. Public Wi-Fi is everywhere. Everybody rely on it in a daily basis. But the most important question that we need to ask, is it secure? That is the most important question. But unfortunately, the answer is no. it is not secure. It's
Yeah.
very vulnerable to citizens. That is trigger me to get into this space and try to address the security flaws.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is critical infrastructure because everywhere you go, people are getting,
Yeah,
you're in the airport, or you're in the library, or you're in Tim Hortons
yeah,
or Starbucks. You know, people
everywhere.
famously go to Starbucks to work, right? So you go to Starbucks or
Yeah,
Tim Hortons, connect to the Wi-Fi there, and start working. And I think
yeah,
that's where it's suddenly become critical because people now are realizing that if you can get onto the Wi-Fi somewhere, then that gives me an inroad into your organization's network because you're connected to that Wi-Fi. And so it becomes critical because I, as an employee of XYZ company, and I go to Starbucks, with the right tools, an attacker can use that public Wi-Fi to get into XYZ company's network. And I think that is the challenge.
yeah,
What
yeah.
exactly is the biggest, again, that's getting into your network might be the biggest challenge. But what would you say is the biggest risk to businesses about public Wi-Fi that needs us to make sure that public Wi-Fi is secure critical infrastructure?
Well, so let me start with what kind of attack we have
Mm-hmm.
right now when we're talking about public Wi-Fi. So public Wi-Fi, everybody uses public Wi-Fi, but what are the attacks that are, people, they might say, oh, well, you can use VPN to be secure. Or the other day I have seen a video. You can use public Wi-Fi even though like you're using HTTP, so encrypted data is encrypted, so you are safe. But the fact is, attackers attack public Wi-Fi before users connect to like
Exactly.
right when you connect to the public Wi-Fi, right? So
Yeah.
that is why like big companies these days, the most important thing is bypassing a VPN and compromise the company, right? That could start from public Wi-Fi. How? When people start connecting to this public Wi-Fi, maybe they're connected to the fake public Wi-Fi. And then at that point, when they are connecting the fake public Wi-Fi, the attacker can do a bunch of stuff. They can install
Yeah.
quietly a malware, and then they can monitor you,
Mm-hmm.
and then they can do whatever they want. So that is the most important thing. Like we are discussing about the most important digital infrastructure that we have in these 2 days.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the thing. One thing I've always found interesting about our industry is we are very good at giving problems names. So, if you look at what are the risks to public Wi-Fi, you hear things like evil twin, or
Yeah,
man in the middle attack. It sounds like it's
yeah,
right out of a James Bond movie or something, But again, I know, like you said, these are some of the things that we have. And you're quite right. The risk to public Wi-Fi is that you might be connecting to a public Wi-Fi that is already compromised without knowing it's already compromised. So you think you're safe, you think you're secure, but hey, the person you're giving all that information to is somebody who is compromised already, which means
yeah,
that even if you're encrypting it, they hold the keys, they
yeah,
hold everything. You've done all your
Eh,
three-way handshake with them.
yeah.
So what are you
So
hiding from the
you
person who has the keys, right?
You can think of evil twin. I don't want to sound like technical. I don't want to make it more
Mm,
technical. But when we are thinking of evil twin, is the attacker, the ultimate goal of the attacker is position themselves between you and the internet. That is the
yeah, exactly.
ultimate goal. So they achieve this through what we call evil twin attack. What they do is they create a fake Wi-Fi that looks identical to the real one. So the user cannot tell whether that Wi-Fi spot is a fake one or legitimate one. They cannot differentiate this. So this
This
time they will connect to the fake one, and then after they connect to the fake one, they are vulnerable to every possible kind of attack.
Yeah, everything, malware, spyware, all of that,
Yeah,
ransomware.
yeah, yeah.
One of the things you mentioned earlier when you were speaking is you said just using a VPN isn't enough. Why would you say just using a VPN isn't enough? Does it have to do with connectivity, trust? What's missing? Even with a VPN that's a secure VPN, it's not enough. Why do you
Yeah.
say so?
So you can use a VPN. I'm not telling people not to use a VPN. VPN helps. But
Mm-hmm.
VPN and using HTTPS does not validate the network that you are using, whether that
Exactly.
is a fake Wi-Fi or legitimate Wi-Fi. So that should be cleared from the network layer. So after you connect, you can use a VPN, and the VPN can encrypt all your transmission. But before the VPN, you will be compromised. That is it's very tricky. It's very tricky, but it's very, very dangerous.
Hey CyberSec Migrant listeners, if you're enjoying the show, help us spread the word. Share the CyberSec Migrant Podcast with your friends, your colleagues, and your network. It's the best way to help others discover our awesome content and to join the conversation. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and any other place where you get your podcast, so you never miss an episode. And do hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Your support helps us keep bringing you more valuable content, insights, and stories, and all these tips from the world of cybersecurity. And thank you for tuning in. And now, let's get back to today's episode.
Yeah, I think that's where the small window of opportunity is, because again, like you said, before you connect with the VPN, it has to do all the verification, and in that small window, the attackers can actually compromise you, and then it's all gone. And if you're connecting to a fake Wi-Fi hotspot anyway in the first place, it makes no difference either you have a VPN or not.
Yes.
And I think that brings me to what you're building. You're building a product. It's called SafePublicWi-Fi. Tell us a bit about exactly what this product is, what's the problem it's going to solve, and how does your approach differ from traditional, endpoint protection, for example?
So we're building a layered platform. It's called SafePublicWi-Fi. As I mentioned, it's layered because we start off by, regular Wi-Fi assessment, penetration testing. But as I mentioned, like right after we do the penetration testing, Wi-Fi could be compromised. So in order to stop that, we need to put a continuous monitoring device. So this device, the continuous monitoring device, uses our detection engine fundamentally to detect two basic public Wi-Fi attacks: the de-authentication attack and the evil twin attack. So combining these two layers of solution, we can make our public Wi-Fi safe to citizens to use.
So if we're able to do this, so who would be the biggest beneficiary from using a tool like SafePublicWi-Fi?
So whoever, like citizens now rely on public Wi-Fi on a daily basis, right? If you go to public libraries, there is a Wi-Fi open. That's already open Wi-Fi. And if we install this device in that particular Wi-Fi setting, citizens will be beneficial from that. We consider it is very secure environment, secure public Wi-Fi, and then people can use it without any fear.
Yeah. Okay. At this point, I'm going to put you on the spot a bit. If you can you talk us through the key concepts behind SafePublicWi-Fi? How does it work? What exactly does it do? Talk us through just the key points of how SafePublicWi-Fi makes I, as a standard user using public Wi-Fi in the airport, for example, making me secure. How does it work?
So once we implement SafePublicWi-Fi in a particular public Wi-Fi setting, so as I mentioned earlier, the two difficult and dangerous attacks are de-authentication attack and evil twin attack. So our monitoring device continuously monitor 24/7 that area. And then when an attacker come in that try to attack that Wi-Fi setting, monitoring device detect and report to our back in the dashboard. And in that way, we will stop the attack in real time.
Okay. So basically, it has to be deployed as an agent first for it to work.
Exactly.
Fine.
Yeah. So that's what I said. It's a layer network security platform. First, we're going to make sure that public Wi-Fi, we do the assessment, comprehensive assessment, Wi-Fi assessment. And then after that, we deploy this device for that particular public Wi-Fi location. And then when the devices start monitoring, if there is an attack happen in that Wi-Fi environment, our device will detect it and report back to our dashboard.
Okay, which means that for me as the user, there's nothing I need to install on my phone, because again, I know people usually are reluctant to install anything on their phone, right? How many apps do we have on our phones already? I know how many apps I have on my phone, so people definitely don't want to install new apps.
For that point, for example, like if you wanna look on your phone where you can go and get safe public Wi-Fi, we build an app you can download freely, and then it just tell you the location where we are securing. Okay. Yeah. It's just like a directory.
Basically, so a directory of where you've already done the assessment, you've verified that those Wi-Fis are safe for anyone to connect to those,
exactly,
and they can do that.
Exactly.
So it's almost like a yellow pages of where is legitimate Wi-Fi and where is sketchy Wi-Fi.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's very useful. I know a story once, again, just a small digression. I know a story once. This was, I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago. And somebody was telling me about someone who was traveling, which is, again, the dangers of public Wi-Fi. She was traveling from India back to North America, and she had a transit stop in Europe. And this is Europe that is very secure, Europe that has very tough cyber laws. And while she was in the airport, she connected to public Wi-Fi, and she did one of the most silly things people do when they go on public Wi-Fi. Yeah. She logged into her banking account. She logged into her banking account, did some transactions, put down her phone, and got on the flight, a 10-hour flight from Europe to North America. By the time she landed in Vancouver, her account was short of $96,000.
Yeah.
And that was because what she thought was a legitimate Wi-Fi in that airport in Europe was just an evil twin, and they stole all her data, her credentials, and they got into her account, and they were able to take money out of her account. So it's painful when you hear stories like that, because again, you don't want anyone to lose their hard-earned money, but something like Safe Public Wi-Fi could have prevented this from happening in the first place if she had that. So I think it's a good thing that something like this is happening. So now, I know you're based out in Toronto. Can you kind of talk to us about where your footprint is now? Where exactly are you operating without actually downloading the app? Where do you have verifiable safe public Wi-Fi hotspots? Around Toronto, here in the West. Talk to us about that.
We are on testing stage. Like we are connecting with companies to implement this infrastructure, and now we are mainly focuses on public settings like public libraries. We are having meeting with city administrators to handle the situation. So we're still on the deployment.
Okay. That's good. I'm wishing you the very, very best. There's a few information available online. I will put a link down in the comments below to some of that information. So if you're interested in learning a bit more about Safe Public Wi-Fi, just check out the links below, and I will put that information there as well, so you can sort of see a bit about that. But coming back to our discussion now, let's step back from Safe Public Wi-Fi for a minute. Let's just talk generally about people using Wi-Fi publicly. If someone were to come to you today and say, "Hey, Fasil, I'm using public Wi-Fi quite a lot, sometimes for work. Can you give me practical advice on what I need to do, the steps I need to take every time I'm using public Wi-Fi, even if I don't have safe public Wi-Fi available to me at that point in time?" What would you advise from a professional point of view?
First, I would recommend to use wherever there is a public Wi-Fi is installed and deployed. But apart from that, it's very tricky in these days. It's very tricky to advise people to use public Wi-Fi, especially as you mentioned before, to access sensitive information. It's very risky. So my recommendation and my suggestion is use public Wi-Fi, maybe to watch YouTube or whatever,
Netflix.
But still Netflix, if they are logging into their account, their account, there is a high chance of accessing that. So don't access sensitive information in public Wi-Fi. It's very dangerous. So my recommendation would be use public Wi-Fi for like routine, watching maybe YouTube or something like that. Apart from that, sensitive information, no. Still people ask, even like I'm using VPN. I hate to say this, but unfortunately, you will not be safe even though you are using a VPN.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned earlier, those two attacks, it's very dangerous. And once you're compromised, it's very hard to come back from that attack.
Absolutely. Once I was reading a stat recently talking about the cost of a breach for an individual, and sometimes just being breached once, and it could take you years just to recover from that kind of breach. So again, good advice there. Don't use public Wi-Fi that for anything that requires you to put in your login credentials. So banking information,
Yeah.
mortgage information, even social media that, sensitive social media. You might think it's just watching Instagram reels,
Yeah.
but again, you are logging in with a username and password. And I think the problem usually is because people are notorious for reusing their passwords everywhere. So that's the main reason why, you lose your password, use your password somewhere, and then you reuse it, and they steal your password from platform A and use that password on platform B, and then they get access to your account.
Yeah, yesterday I was at the cybersecurity meetup by CyberX.
CyberX, yeah.
Yesterday I was attending that, and I had a conversation with some of the foxes there, and I was explaining what I'm building. And people, they know public Wi-Fi is risky and it's not safe.
Yeah.
But majority of them still they're using public Wi-Fi for their corporate.
We are addicted to the internet.
Exactly. It is because of the convenience of the public Wi-Fi, right? The people, they tend to trade their convenience over the security. That is the most important.
Yes, and people also don't want to go over their data limit on their mobile device. Yes, so mobile networks in Canada, if you're listening, please give us more data at cheaper prices. Okay, so let's talk a bit more about the future of public Wi-Fi security. Now, again, just speaking generally, I know that we have come a long way when it comes to Wi-Fi security. I remember when Wi-Fi security was WEP, wide equivalency privacy. WEP, if you have a Wi-Fi network that is still on WEP or even WPA, maybe you should do something about it. Now we've got WPA2, which again, potentially at risk, but WPA3 is referred, all of that. So where do you see the future of security for public Wi-Fi in another, maybe in a year, in 5 years, maybe in 20 years? Will quantum give us newer risks for public Wi-Fi?
Yeah, exactly. I would say like WPA3 is very secure, I would say, at this time. But we're talking about, it's not about the encryption that we're dealing with now. It is a network level attack that we are trying to address right now. So in terms of that, I do hope even this SafePublicWi-Fi and other companies will jump into the market and try to provide another solution for this. I am hopeful we will have like very robust security, a network level security platform in coming 5 years or so.
Yeah.
We as QState, we are also introducing machine learning to our agent, the monitoring device, to be able to learn the packet that is passing through the Wi-Fi setting. And I am hopeful once we get that done, it's going to be much more advanced security platform that we will have in the coming future.
Okay, yeah. So that's been a very, very technical, not very technical, but quite high level conversation around, Wi-Fi, security around Wi-Fi. And yes, I like how you pointed out that it's a network level attack. For those who don't know, we're talking about the OSI model where there's different layers for your information, right all the way from your physical layer down to your application layer. You want to, again, the network layer is way lower down. It's very important to all of that. But, okay, so talking a bit more about, let's put aside the conversation around, public safe public Wi-Fi for a bit. Let's talk about your experience. Having moved here, what has it been like, How have you found the challenge of, moving to a new place, starting out your career, where you are today? What would be the highs and the lows? And if somebody was going to say, hey, Fasil, I'm thinking of moving to Canada tomorrow. Should I do it? What should I be aware of? What should I not do? That kind of thing. 2 minutes. What do you think?
I think as a migrant moving to another country with nobody, nothing, it's very, very important decision and a difficult decision to make. Fortunately, Canada is the best country that, I had a chance to go to US and to come to Canada both at the time. But I decided to come to Canada, and I do believe that I did a good choice.
Yeah.
After I came here, well, it was challenging because I don't know anyone. Even, starting jobs, you cannot get jobs unless you have Canadian experience, right? It's very challenging. At the beginning, it was challenging, but I went to college just for bridging courses. Through that bridging courses, I have, make my own networks and stuff like that. And then I started working as a software developer. And after that, the rest is history.
As they say.
Yeah, yeah. So after I worked as a software developer, as I mentioned before, I have a passion for cybersecurity, and now I am building my own company. But still, now I am, there is challenge everywhere. Uh, Working for someone and make sure you have money at the end of the month. That's another thing. Building your company, it's very challenging too.
Very different, yeah.
But yeah, but now we're working on that. Hopefully, everything gonna be perfect.
Yeah. That's something that I think all of us as immigrants, sort of the things that we always look forward to and hope for as we need to try to build our careers in this. I want to wish you the very, very best. I hope that wishing you and SafePublicWi-Fi a lot of success. I am going to be following your story, but just for the sake of our audience, if anyone wanted to get in touch with you or follow your work, what's the best way to do that? How can they reach out or contact you through? Okay.
For me now, I am more available on LinkedIn.
Okay. So you hear that, people. I'm going to put a link in the description below to his LinkedIn profile. So feel free to connect with him on LinkedIn and get a sense of what he's working at. Feel free to connect. I'm sure he's open to new connections. But on behalf of the audience, I want to say thank you so much, Fasil, for coming on today. It's been a very, very interesting conversation. And I think people are going to be a bit more aware that public Wi-Fi is a risk that we have to use carefully, despite it being critical infrastructure. Now it's critical infrastructure, we agree with that, and it's something we have to use with a lot of common sense so that we don't expose ourselves and our data to a lot of information. To the audience, thank you for coming on again on another episode of the CyberSec Migrant Podcast. Always appreciate having you here with us as we do these conversations. What we would like for you to do for us is this. If you find this conversation helpful, if you find it insightful or even useful, share this with someone who you think is going to benefit from this. We'd really appreciate that. Your likes, your subscriptions all help us to grow the channel and to continue to bring you this awesome content that we bring to you. And until next time when I come your way again, this is Femi signing out. Thank you.